The year was 1972. Behind the glittering facade of Graceland, a marriage was crumbling. Priscilla Presley had endured years of whispered rumors, suspicious phone calls, and empty promises. But when undeniable evidence of Elvis's latest affair landed in her hands, she knew the charade was over. What happened next in their heated confrontation would not only shatter their relationship forever, but reveal a side of the king that the world had never seen. This is the untold story of the night that changed everything. Priscilla's hands trembled as she held the photographs. The private investigator had delivered them that morning, along with detailed reports that left no room for doubt. Elvis wasn't just having an affair, he was living a double life. The images showed him entering hotel rooms with various women, intimate dinners at secluded restaurants, and passionate embraces that made her stomach turn. She had suspected for years, of course. The late-night calls that ended abruptly when she entered the room, the unexplained absences during tours, the way his eyes would dart away when she asked direct questions. Friends had tried to warn her, speaking in coded language about Elvis's entertainment on the road. But seeing the proof laid out so starkly was devastating. The house felt suffocatingly quiet as she sat in their bedroom, surrounded by the evidence of her husband's betrayals. Lisa Marie was at school, blissfully unaware that her parents' marriage was disintegrating. Priscilla thought about all the times she had defended Elvis to skeptical friends and family members, all the excuses she had made for his behavior. She remembered their early days together when she was just a teenager, and he was already a global sensation. He had promised her the world, painted dreams of a perfect life together. The reality had been years of loneliness, waiting for a man who belonged more to his fans than to his family. As she heard Elvis's Cadillac pulling up the circular driveway, Priscilla made a decision. Tonight, there would be no more pretending, no more turning a blind eye. She gathered the photographs and reports, her resolve hardening with each piece of evidence. The confrontation she had been avoiding for years was finally going to happen. The front door opened, and she heard Elvis's voice echoing through the mansion, calling out his usual cheerful greeting. But tonight, there would be no cheerful response. Tonight, everything would change. Elvis bounded up the stairs, his mood jovial after a successful recording session. He was humming one of his new songs when he entered the bedroom and saw Priscilla sitting rigidly on the edge of their bed, a manila envelope in her hands. "Well?" "Hello there, beautiful," he said, loosening his tie. "You look serious tonight. Something wrong?" Priscilla looked up at him, her blue eyes cold as ice. "Sit down, Elvis. We need to talk." The change in her tone was immediate and unmistakable. Elvis had heard that voice before, but never directed at him with such finality. He sat down cautiously in the chair across from her, his earlier cheerfulness evaporating. "What's this about, Scylla?" She opened the envelope and spread the photographs across the bed between them, like a deck of cards revealing a losing hand. Elvis's face went pale as he recognized the images himself with Sandra, the backup singer from his Vegas shows, himself with Maria, the flight attendant who had caught his eye during the recent tour. "I hired a private investigator," Priscilla said, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. "I needed to know the truth, Elvis. I needed proof of what everyone else already knew." Elvis stared at the photos, his jaw working silently. For a moment, she thought he might deny it all, might try to convince her that the images were somehow fabricated. Instead, he leaned back in his chair and ran his hands through his hair. "Scylla, don't," she interrupted, holding up her hand. "Don't lie to me anymore. Don't tell me these women don't mean anything. Don't tell me it's just the loneliness of the road. I'm done with the excuses." The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Elvis looked at his wife, really looked at her, and saw something he had never seen before in her eyes. It wasn't just anger or hurt. It was finality. What happened next shocked Priscilla to her core. Instead of the defensive anger or smooth-talking denials she had expected, Elvis did something completely unexpected. He began to cry, not the subtle tears of remorse she had seen before during their smaller arguments, but deep, body-shaking sobs that seemed to come from somewhere profound within him. He collapsed forward, his head in his hands, and for the first time in their relationship, Priscilla saw Elvis Presley, not the king, not the performer, not the charming manipulator, but a broken man. "You're right," he whispered through his tears. "You're absolutely right about everything, and I hate myself for it." Priscilla sat frozen, the photographs scattered around her, watching her husband fall apart. This wasn't the response she had prepared for. She had armed herself for battle, expecting lies and excuses, and perhaps even anger directed back at her for hiring the investigator. "I don't know how to be married, Scylla," Elvis continued, his voice raw with emotion. "I don't know how to be a husband or a father. All I know is how to be Elvis Presley, and that man is poison to everyone who loves him." He looked up at her then, his famous blue eyes red with tears, and something that looked like genuine self-awareness for the first time in years. "I've been running from myself for so long that I forgot there were other people in the race. I forgot that my running was hurting you." The vulnerability in his voice was unlike anything she had ever heard from him. Gone was the swagger, the confidence, the charismatic charm that had captivated millions. In its place was a man confronting his own demons for perhaps the first time in his adult life. "I know you're going to leave me," he said quietly. "I know. I've finally pushed you too far, and honestly, maybe that's what I've been trying to do all along." Elvis stood up slowly, walking to the window that overlooked the grounds of Graceland. The moon cast long shadows across the lawn where Lisa Marie played during happier times. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. "You want to know the truth, Scylla? The real truth?" He turned back to face her, and she saw something in his expression that made her heart race, not with love this time, but with recognition of a man finally ready to be honest. "I've been afraid of you since the day I married you. Afraid of disappointing you. Afraid of not being the man you thought I was. Afraid of you seeing through all the smoke and mirrors to the scared kid from Memphis who never grew up." He laughed bitterly. "So instead of trying to be better, I just ran into other women's arms, into pills, into anything that would let me forget that I was failing you every single day." Priscilla felt her own tears beginning to fall. This wasn't the Elvis she had fallen in love with as a teenager, but it also wasn't the distant stranger she had been married to for years. This was someone entirely new, someone real. Every affair, every lie, every time I chose the road over home, it was me trying to prove that I was as worthless as I felt. And you know what the sick part is? Every time you forgave me, every time you welcomed me back, I resented you a little more for it, because it meant I had to keep pretending to be worthy of that forgiveness. He moved closer to her, but stopped just out of reach. "I don't expect you to understand it, and I sure as hell don't expect you to forgive it. But you deserve to hear the truth before whatever comes next." The room fell silent, except for the ticking of the antique clock on the mantelpiece. Priscilla studied her husband's face, searching for any sign of manipulation or performance. But all she saw was exhaustion, and a kind of defeated honesty that was more frightening than any lie he had ever told her. For years, she had wanted him to be real with her. Now that he finally was, she realized that the truth was going to destroy them both. This confrontation marked the beginning of the end for Elvis and Priscilla Presley. Their divorce would be finalized in 1973, but the seeds of their separation were planted in this moment of brutal honesty. Sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. Sometimes it simply shows you that freedom was never really an option. Ready to discover more untold stories from music history's most traumatic moments? Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to never miss the shocking truths behind the headlines that shaped our culture.